The study found that Republican-leaning kids were more open to visiting a Democrat-supporting household. The Democrat-leaning kids were about 5 times more likely to say they would not want to go to a pro-Trump house.
Would they be okay with you going over to somebody's house who is really supportive of President Trump?
No.
No? And why not?
Because they know that he is not like black people, so they will not be happy to see me.
Would your family let you go over to somebody's house who's really supportive of Donald Trump?
No.
No, they wouldn't?
No.
And why not?
Because, my mom and dad don't like Donald Trump at all. Not a single bit.
Would you be okay going over to somebody's house whose family really likes Kamala Harris?
I think it'd be fine. It's just about the personality of the people.
So today I want to focus on this idea that, we've been not brainwashed. I think we've been conditioned as a whole to always perceive that liberals are more tolerant than conservatives. But when you look at actions and reality, right? If you look at the actions of someone, don't look at don't focus on their words, focus on their deeds. Actions speak louder than words. Your kids, you can pretend you're tolerant outside of your house, right? To your neighbors who have a Trump flag, to your co-workers who's a Trump supporter. Liberals can pretend that they're tolerant out in the open. But behind closed doors, your kids, they know the real you. They know you better than most people know you outside of your house because they observe you. They grew up watching you. And kids that coming from a liberal household have revealed, and this is something I constantly talk about on my videos, is that liberals are not tolerant. They pretend to be. They're only tolerant as long as you fit within their little box they put you in. If you're a black man, if you're not a Democrat, they're not as tolerant to hear your lived experience. If you say that, hey, racism isn't the biggest problem in my life, actually, it's my actions and decisions that have the biggest impact on my life, not my skin color, liberals will not be tolerant of you saying that. I know. I'm around one constantly all my life. I've been around them all my life. And when I highlight this, many liberals on my comment section will sit here pretend that somehow I'm projecting, somehow I'm being too harsh on liberals, or I'm being too biased towards liberals, or I'm too negative on liberals. And I'm like, yo, no, it's the truth. I show you information. I show you that I ask you a question. Who's more likely to block a friend because of their political affiliation? Democrats. Who's more likely not to date someone of an opposing political ideology? Democrat women. All signs point to you guys being the least tolerant. Who is independents and Republicans? Majority of them do not trust legacy media. But the only political faction that still trusts mainstream media is who? Democrats, 58%. You can look all this stuff up. And this shows you and highlights how a lot of the parents influence their kids, but the media influences the parents. And I want to take this clip that I saw from Megyn Kelly's show where she's talking with Nicole Shanahan, and they talked about how there's a generational difference between consumption of information. If you're more millennial, Gen X, Gen Z, your diet mostly comes from the social media. While if you're on the older spectrum, and this is what's going on with my mom, she's a baby boomer, they get their news from CNN, MSNBC, the what we consider the mainstream legacy media. And Mark Cuban sparked a whole debate. I'll circle back on this, but I want to highlight this conversation between Nicole Shanahan and Mark Kelly. Let's take a look.
Boomers are really hard to reach in this country. Liberal boomers are some of the most stubborn when it comes to changing their opinion on Donald Trump. They're hooked to legacy media. I call it boomer news.
Right. That's good.
And, this one, it's called the Dear Dad ad. And it's a family story. It's my family story of my sister-in-law trying to communicate with her dad, who's a never Trumper. They're in Arizona. And her son, little boy, Jack, was severely vaccine injured and almost passed away. And this was a clear case of vaccine injury. So Dear Dad is just this gut-wrenching letter she wrote that we're going to try to get out there and help people understand that, this is one election cycle, but we've got bigger battles to fight right now. We've got to uncover the depths of the corruption. And this is not vindictive. This is not a vindictive journey. We're not trying to, you know, throw anyone in prison for the rest of their life, but we want freedom. We want our liberty back. We want honest health care. We want our children protected. We don't want to see any more of these 1.5-year-old, 2.5-year-old babies struggling to breathe on ventilators.
Yeah.
So you got this idea that we know generational divide of who consume information. The younger you are, the more likely you are to consume information from social media. The older you are, the more likely you are to consume information from television, aka legacy media. So then we have what Shanahan just outlined, and this has been commonly known that, as the older you get, the more stubborn, the more stuck in your ways you become. And who's raising these kids, right? Who has more influence on their kids? The parents, obviously. So you can see the actual outcomes of what's going on. But the mainstream media will continue pushing that Donald Trump is somehow divisive when it's the media's reaction to Donald Trump that's causing the division. Many people agree, especially many Americans who are disillusioned or distrustful of the mainstream media. Many of them believe that the mainstream media is a threat to America because the mainstream media crafts narratives that divides the American people. It's not Donald Trump. It's the way the mainstream media interprets Donald Trump. As you saw with the bloodbath comments, he was talking about economic bloodbaths, but the media misconstrued, misinterpret all that to sell a story, to sell a vision. Division, sorry. And then you wonder why these same Democrat kids who are supposed to be teaching so much about tolerance of people who agree with them, that's the only tolerance they talk about. The tolerance is very exclusive. Only liberals get tolerance. If you're a non-liberal, you don't get tolerance. This is what they're unconsciously teaching onto their kids. And the researchers are already proving, like, to me, I feel vindicated already. I've been knowing this. Like, black community is known for doing this for the longest time. Oh, you're not going to associate with them. Oh, you're a racist bigot if you go against the Democratic orthodoxies. Now you see it bleeding out to other communities. So let's take a look at the clip.
Donald Trump, he did bad things. He's like Hitler.
He only wanted to be president so that he can just control everybody.
Trump is supporting January 6th now. I remember that January 6th, it was a bunch of Republicans believing Trump. I feel like they thought Trump was a god. People got arrested. I think one officer died afterwards. That was a big day.
The study found that these Democrat-leaning kids were about 9 times more likely to express negative emotions about Donald Trump than Republican-leaning kids were about Kamala Harris.
Donald Trump.
But racism, but xenophobia, sexism. This is what's driving the conservatives movement against Kamala Harris. Not the fact that your policies are crap. You've been in office for 3.5 years. You haven't done anything. You still haven't done anything. Biden admitted that he delegated everything to Kamala Harris. Like, this is stuff that Democrats seem to not teach their kids. And it goes back to my point about how Democrats do not really self-reflect at all. They don't look at their own side. They just look at what the other side is doing. Everything's whataboutism with the Democratic Party. But they want to sit here and pretend that, no, it's Republicans. Biden said he delegated everything to Kamala Harris, foreign policy to domestic policy. But everything's Donald Trump's fault. Okay. Emotionalism. This is some emotional bullcrap that we're seeing a lot from many Democratic voters. And they're spreading this amongst their kids. And then we wonder why the next generation is so bad. We wonder why the left seems so interested in education and wanted to indoctrinate our kids in their values. Because that's what education system unironically has become. All right? This is the idea. There seems to be a whole contingent of the education world that thinks the sole goal of schooling is to get kids to divulge as many personal details as possible. Spoken word poems, journaling, self-reflection essays, restorative circles. Can we make school academic again? Many people are pointing out the inefficiencies in education, but the liberals, their default is defend Department of Education. Why would we defend something that before it was created, we had the #1 education system in the world? After it was created, it managed and governed the 24th education in the world, which put us near the bottom of education in the world. That will show me that, hey, based on the metrics, you failed. Your job was supposed to maintain us as the number one, right? Create cohesion across all the states so that way all our kids have access to a quality education. But all it seemed to do is give control to all these education systems to be controlled by a liberal world view. You're here teaching our kids about transgenderism and all this stuff to the point where states have to pass laws to reject some of this stuff. And even then, you still have these teachers actively trying to push ideology on their kids, on our children. And if we're not allowed, right? This is my main point. I asked for consistency. If you ban the Bible because you didn't want religion to be taught in schools, in this day and age with less and less people believing in God, the Bible makes a solid argument here. The Bible says that you can't remove God, you really replace him. So you replace religion with ideology. People are worshiping politics like a religion. They're disowning people because you find out they're Trump supporters. Democrat will unfriend you, block you. Hell, if you're a Democratic parent and you find out your child is a Republican or vote for Trump, you'll disown them. Does this sound like just an ideology? Does this just sound like principles? Does this just sound like beliefs? You saw how the Republican kids reacted. They say, hey, it depends on their personality. AKA, your politics does not define your personality. But some reason, the Democrats think your political ideology defines your personality. Make it make sense. And these are the people who pretend to be tolerant. Like I always said, Democrats pretend to be good. In reality, they're not good. And this is what it is. That's why they fall for the show of Kamala Harris. All she has to do is present herself as appearing good, appearing virtuous, appearing moderate. And that's all they need. But they're going to sit here and project their inadequacies on conservative people, saying, oh, you guys only voted for Trump. You worship Trump like a god. No, that's propaganda your parents heard from CNN and MSNBC. And then you got Mark Cuban now, circling back to Mark Cuban, right? Because this guy made a claim that most of media is right-leaning. Now, he focuses on podcasts, he's talking about podcasts. I gave a compliment to right-leaning media. You're now the NBCs. The biggest TV news shows are on Fox. The top 10 podcasts have a bunch of right-leaning shows. Sinclair owns more TV stations than anyone. Salem, all right-leaning. iHeart's biggest syndicate shows. Blah, 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 blah. But he wants to ignore the fact that George Soros is buying about, I don't know how much. Let me look for it real quick, and then I'll just cut ahead. I was able to find it. Conservatives tried to buy one radio station in Florida, and the left went apoplectic. Soros buys 200, and no one in the media even blinks an eye. Dems try to block sale of Florida radio station that would be serving Hispanic conservative content, right? This is a problem in our politics, right? But he wants to play this game because what liberals do is they tend to hone in on something, right? An exception to justify their feelings about something. This is why I say liberalism is based on rationalism, while conservatism is kind of based on empiricism. And conservatives go based on what they observe and experience and know, while liberals seems to use the rationale to justify and reason how they view the world. Liberals suffer more from imagination than from reality. The imagination, oh my God, look, all these content creators, because the reason why the right seems to dominate social media is because this is the only way that you hear conservative perspectives is through online. And this is why your side wants to content moderate. This is why your side wants to censorship, Mark Cuban. Because they gatekeep legacy media. They gatekeep a lot of these institutions that when conservatives try to express their ideas in Hollywood, they get shut down, they get stonewalled, they get blacklisted. You guys became gatekeepers. Same thing is kind of happening in corporate America, where you have to preach, you have to fall in line with the leftist orthodoxy of DEI, or else you're not going to get a job. You don't, it's like he doesn't see the fact that it's because these institutions are politically dominated by people of his side is one of the reasons why right-wing media, the biggest podcasts, are conservative, because people don't hear conservative ideas, so it becomes so different and nuanced compared to what they're used to, that this is why they gravitate to alternative media, because people believe they get a more representative idea of what people are actually perceiving these things. Instead of CNN selectively picking what kind of conservative they want, they never put a super pro-Trump person on CNN. You don't realize that? They filter. And this is the problem that many conservatives highlight with content moderation, with censorship, is that your bias can create a filter that stops people from hearing alternative or contrarian views or opinions on a subject. Climate change is my biggest example of this. Is that they'll filter out, they only put people who are pro climate change or who are not climate change, but they never want to put the person that is completely against climate change. Vivek Ramaswamy is another example of this. He's able to highlight, hey, look, more people died of cold than heat. Doesn't global warming actually help our human flourishing? But they won't bring an expert, someone who has the same credentials as these so-called climate change experts on that will challenge the climate change orthodoxy, the climate change religion, because then that'll give credibility to people who feel that the climate change issue is exaggerated. When on my channel, you see it all the time, especially if you look at my channel, you look up climate change, I show you examples of how, the science is not clear on this. These people are dramatizing a lot of these things and blowing it out of proportions the same way they blow out of proportions Donald Trump being a threat to democracy. This is just emotionalism crap. This is them trying to justify how they feel about something, and they trying to rationalize and justify why they're against Trump, even though every logical person in the world can see that Trump is the better candidate between Kamala Harris and himself. And the only way, and if you believe otherwise, is because it's based on emotional reasons. You're honing on one singular issue. That's the only way you can believe that Donald Trump isn't the favorite to win this election. That's the only way you can vote for Kamala Harris. And because she hasn't provided anything for you in the 3.5 years, but you want to keep voting for her. For what? Because you don't want Donald Trump. Emotions. Cut your nose to spite your face. But this is the reality. You hate Trump more than you love America. So I want to end off with this clip that I found, and I think it synonymizes everything that I actually think is going on with the liberal in 2024. Let's take a look.
Honestly, just think about how truly anti-American you have to be to go against Trump and RFK and vote for Kamala. Trump in general just wants to put America first, make America safe, and give people the best life they can and make it affordable. RFK wants to go after all the big government, pharmaceutical, forced vaccines, and all these things to make people healthy. So truly, voting Kamala at this point, you are just anti-American, you hate Americans, and your hate for Trump is just the most important thing to you and outweighs all Americans and their suffering and the people coming in that are losing their lives in this country. It outweighs all of that. And I'm sure you're the party of love and tolerance as well, but your hate for one man that the media told you to hate outweighs literally all of these things and how much these could help not only people in our country, but the other countries that follow and watch us as well. And for all the people who have been protesting against the wars going on that we are involved in, that would have never happened under Trump, the irony to vote for the people that are in that same administration is crazy. So don't say you're anti-war when this is what you're going for. Trump kept us out of wars. He does not want war, and I can assure you neither does RFK.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. Like, actions speak louder than words, right? And the liberal left, right? Liberals, Democrats, whatever, people who are willing to vote for Kamala Harris, it's just based on emotional. Like, they just hate Trump. That's it. And your hate for Trump matters more to you than your love for your country, love for your community, love for your citizens. Because if you look at every objective measure, right? Illegal immigrants coming over the border, they're taking up resources. Democrat cities are going to budget shortfalls to keep these illegals in these countries. They're using legal loopholes to give them temporary protection status so they can stay in this country, even though they broke the law to get into this country at the expense of American taxpayers who voted and also contribute to the government benefits that many of these illegals are taking advantage of, because the majority of these illegals are on welfare benefits, essentially create a division within the country. You got dangerous gangs leveraging the fact that the Biden-Harris administration has such a open and lax border policy that they're able to come in here and actually bring harm to the American population, increasing crime in some of these areas, such as Chicago specifically. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Causing a possible turf war between American gangs and Venezuelan gangs that came from Venezuela. You bring all this damage and misfortune to the community, and the one guy that has a proven track record of actually doing something about the border, right? Instead, you want to find any reasons to justify your decision to continue with Kamala Harris. This is why they latch on to narratives such as, oh, Trump wanted to stop the border deal because of political reasons. He wanted to keep running on this issue. That's why he stopped the border deal. If you watch my previous videos, I highlight how many Republicans felt like the border deal would not solve the problems that's actually affecting American people. The American people, majority of Americans, 54% of Americans, want mass deportation. So adding more border patrol agents to process more immigrants across the border is not the solution I think Americans are looking for. But liberals are going to liberal. They're going to sit here and pretend that they're so tolerant, they're so open-minded, they're so virtuous, when it's all fake. It's all for their self-aggrandizement. To me, from my personal experience, it's just my opinion here, I think liberals are some of the most selfish people I've ever seen in my life. They vote based on some selfish ish. Oh, I want to be able to do whatever I want with my property, aka my kids. If I feel like my kids are not worth living, then I should be allowed to kill them. This is what abortion is pretty much about. Oh, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't care if Kamala Harris is the worst candidate ever. She's better than Trump. Selfish decision to make. Oh, Democrats give me empty platitudes about reparations. They keep dangling like a carrot in the stick, but Trump ain't gonna say nothing about reparations, so I'm gonna vote for Harris. Because no one can win on reparations. That's the reality. That's the political reality. Except Democrats, by the way. Because many other liberals of other races know that Democrats are just giving lip service to the black community because they need the black vote to kind of win the election. So many liberals understand this, so they play along. And then you wonder why when I come out, I did a video a long time ago. You want to see how correct I've been? I did a video on Gavin Newsom passing the reparations, something about reparations, talking about reparations. And in that video, I said Gavin Newsom is not going to pass this bill. I said California has no historical ties to slavery. California has never been a slave state. So there's no justification for California to pass reparations. A lot of black dudes in my comment section was saying that, oh no, he gonna pass that reparations. Y'all just mad that Democrats are acting on their promises. They're coding up their side of the bargain. We're gonna keep voting Newsom. This is why Newsom winning California. 2024 comes out. What happened? It got the bills didn't even make it to him. See how the timeline works? And all I ask is people to pay attention, man. Just pay attention. Don't look at what people say. Look at what they do. That's wisdom. Because liberals say a lot of stuff, but when you look at their actions, you realize DEI is not about inclusion. It's about excluding a group. Because if DEI was truly about inclusion, then they would generally consistently apply DEI across all industries, like sports. 78% of the NBA is black. That don't sound very diverse. So why they don't implement any DEI policies for the NBA? But if we find a profession that's 78% white, it needs more diversity. Diversity just means anti-white, it seems. Anti-majority. But then when the majority happens to be black, they don't want to apply it. Tells you something. But this is me exposing how liberals pretend to be tolerant. As someone who grew up around liberals, as someone who grew up around Democrats, I see it clear as day. They keep their kids away from people of different worldview, and then they're gonna claim that conservatives are in an echo chamber. Make it make sense. Conservatives are more willing to let their kids go to you're gonna go to those Harris supporters, make fun of them a little bit, go on their merry way. In my family, we got a guy, my wife's great grandfather. He voted Joe Biden, whatever. We make fun of him all the time. I say, hey man, you mad about them going after your Social Security, your welfare benefits? Hey, you voted for Biden. We make jokes like that. We make little jabs at him like that. But you ain't gonna find that in a Democrat household. But you're tolerant. You wonder why black men are moving away from the Democratic Party, because there's no discussion there. One thing I know about men is, as much ideological or as partisan as we can be, we're not emotional to that degree. We are willing to be like, yo, I need to hear something else, bro. This is not working. What you're doing is not working, Kamala Harris. You're not clear on what you stand on. You're not clear on how you're going to go about fixing these problems. And you're mad that people are roasting her about her interviews. But you expect to still vote for her because she's not Trump. Does that sound logical to you? Many men ain't going to go for that. But, I digress. I think I went on a little rant there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, what you guys are thinking about this situation. Do you think liberals are actually tolerant, or do you agree with me and that you think they pretend to be tolerant, but in reality, they're the least tolerant people in the political Western hemisphere? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.